You cannot go into it thinking that the life that you are living currently is going to be the same one when you do the startup.
Adam Meek has worked across countless industries to help businesses turn ideas into scalable systems. In this episode, he shares the fundamentals every founder needs before taking the first real leap.
Don't ask your family and friends. There's a great book called The Mom Test, which says essentially that, your mom, your parents, your friends are not going to want to hurt your feelings.
Adam doesn't just give advice, he challenges the assumptions that hold new founders back.
Word of mouth is greater than any type of marketing you could actually do. It's free, and free is good. Fall in love with the problem, not the solution.
All right, starting a business has never been more accessible, but it's also never been more misunderstood. Social media makes entrepreneurship look fast, flashy, and simple, but behind every sustainable business are the fundamentals most people never see: structure, metrics, discipline, and hard decisions. So in this podcast, I am looking to talk a lot about business, taking people from essentially zero. Let's say somebody has an idea and maybe someone has a side hustle. Maybe somebody wants to quit their 9-to-5 entirely and start something. So what I'm looking to do is dig deeper and be able to help that person really achieve their goal, right? To achieve financial freedom to whatever that means towards them, whether it's, extra income or, a whole new career entirely. So, why I'm excited to have you in particular on the show, because you have a very diverse background in the business world. You've done all kinds of things from as far as, corporate marketing, you've done nonprofit leadership, all kinds of different areas in your background. So I'm very excited to pick your brain today, Adam. So happy you're here.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Happy to be here.
I'm big on learning patterns. I've seen in my own experience that, things across one industry tend to be the same across other. So what fundamental principles have you carried across industries that have been helpful to you?
It's all systems and processes. There is a great guy, can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but his entire podcast is what it's called now. Oh, The School of Hard Knocks. So have you heard of that at all?
I'm not familiar.
It's great. It's some guy just walks up to people on the street that, they look like they're baller status in some way, shape, or form. He just asks them just like basic questions. I saw one on LinkedIn, funny enough, last night. And the guy said, I run 80 different businesses and it's all systems and processes. I can do the same thing with any type of business. And this is what I've learned. It's the same thing. You might have to tweak things a little bit here and there. But, business is business. It all gets run pretty much the same way, So that's jumping off point, the systems and processes. Once you figure that part out and, tweak it in order to scale, then you are golden.
And what do some of those system and processes look like?
It's essentially taking the customer journey. So legitimately, you are the customer. What is the first thing that they're going to see in order to, learn about your business? So it's probably going to be social media in some way, shape, or form. What is the message that you're trying to send out? What is your end goal? Obviously, to get them, either to a website or to get them to the call or, essentially buy your product, right? So that's the start. When you're going through all that, you're also going through the marketing funnel and you're also going through the sales funnel. So as the customer journey is the main path, but then you have little offshoots that kind of weave in and out, and they always come back to the customer journey. How does that happen? Where are you going to go in order to find these people? Creating the customer, what we call in marketing avatars, and then just making sure that, they get to the final destination, which is, in your client list.
Right. Essentially, I know a lot of owners, they really just think about things from the customer's lens, right? So like, where are they? What pages are they on? What groups are they in? Where do they shop? Where do they spend their money? Essentially, is where you want to be.
Exactly. And, there's also, interestingly enough, sometimes the customer isn't who you think it is. So, you've got to look at your marketing metrics. Google Analytics is king. So I was really shocked when I was doing a pilot program during my MBA. And I was really shocked that it was not the person who I thought it was, number one. And it was definitely not the times that I thought they were going to be. I was hitting more 18 to 24-year-olds at like 8:00 in the morning on a Saturday or Sunday. And I'm like, is this like walk of shame and people are just like doom scrolling? I mean, I don't understand where these people are coming from or why I'm hitting them. I was happy, but I definitely had to think about, the process that was going on, who these people are, why they were attracted to the message. Rather than, I was looking for, essentially like 45 to 54-year-olds. So that's kind of the marketing message that I was aiming at, but didn't hit that mark. I did, but not as heavily as I did with 18 to 24s. So it was interesting.
I want to talk about the beginner blueprint and just things that you need to know really as you're getting started. So how do you validate a business idea before you invest serious time or money?
Validation.
Is it, you putting out an item and then people are buying it? I found that the fact that people will tell you, oh, I like this idea, but until they actually spend their money on it, it's not really something that's a legitimate business idea, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I always, I always start with what problem are you trying to solve? Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So during the pandemic had, this is my first male dog that I've had since I was 3. And of course, at 3 years old, I don't remember Chip at all, right? So one of the things that male dogs do that female dogs don't do is lift their leg, right? When they go to the bathroom. My dog had a really powerful stream and he was constantly nailing the back of his front legs. Disgusting, I know, but it was a real problem. And especially when my dog has white legs, right? So I was getting this yellow in the back and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I need something that is nylon that this stuff will bounce off of. I need something that is going to be able to, if you look at a dog's leg, it's going to be, this is the elbow at the top. So I need something that goes over the top of the elbow that's not going to slip. I need something that goes down above the dew claw area so it's not bothering them. And it needs to, be able to go over a paw of whatever size it needs to be. So it was like elastic and nylon. Okay. If I'm going to do this and I'm going on a walk, he's going to pick up burrs. He's going to pick up, like what we call nettles, these little things that are flowers.
Like prickly grass and all that.
Exactly. So we ended up making them out of, we as my friend from, I've known her since I was 3. She's a seamstress. So ended up using ripstop nylon. So these were things that I was learning all the way along the way, trying to figure out a name for it. Again, people that I've known since in middle school, talking with them. And I was like, okay, what should we name this? And we named it Piz and Paws. So PIZ-N PAUSE. So I was thinking, okay, if I'm going to try to partner with certain companies, Piz and Paws probably isn't going to be the most professional way to actually go about this. So I was like thinking, got a working model going on, took him for a walk. The first guy had a dog. And he said, what's up with the armies? And I'm like, that's it. We go adventuring. I always say that Alex loves to adventure. He's my big adventurer. He loves to explore. And the armies, they go over the arm. Oh, Adventure Army is what it ended up calling it. So the entire idea was to fund, the sales of those was going to fund the basic necessities of a dog. So the 4 vaccines that they need every year, their monthly flea, tick, and worms, that medication, and then also spaying and neutering. And because I had a dog that I had to put down, that was really hard. And then having to pay for it afterward that's just masochistic to me. So that's the other thing I was going to do, was like take care of like general cremation services. So that is where the Adventure Army was going to go with that. So that's how that whole thing actually started, it was an idea. So that was the product that I ended up making. Didn't take it to market at all, but it's still sitting there in the back of my head.
I guess my follow-up question was it profitable, or did it, but it hasn't made it to the market yet, maybe it's best that, think someone will steal that idea after hearing that.
It's legitimately jacketless sleeves. You know what I mean? So
it's like an athletic band for dogs.
Exactly. So anybody's welcome to it. I tried to get it patented just for like general use patent, but I ended up missing a letter or something like that. So I don't know if that's even a possibility. So I should have probably attacked that. Another good idea.
I like that.
Thanks.
All right. Let's say you have an idea, right? What are some early signs that your idea might work? It might have a business model that will work. What are some indicators that are like, wow, this is an idea that is actually going to become something profitable?
Don't ask your family and friends. There's a great book called The Mom Test, which says essentially that, your mom, your parents, your friends are not going to want to hurt your feelings. So, they'll say that, it's a great idea or a good idea or whatever. When you start talking to people out in public, generally, if you're at a bar or if you're younger and young enough or like, in that area, going to bars and just talking to people or just like mixers or, people at church or whatever, wherever you happen to hang out, just like mention the idea, what do you do? Well, You can tell them what your day job is, but it's more interesting if you say, oh, well, I'm thinking about starting up this business and blah, 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 blah. And they go, oh my God, that's a great idea. That's something that is probably going to end up getting some traction in some way, shape, or form.
Well, how do you know if someone says that it's a good idea versus like they would actually be a customer? Let's say that they needed it and like whatever product or service you had, and then they said, "Oh, that's a great idea." Like, how do you validate them just being nice versus, "Hey, I can actually make money doing this"?
Yeah, traction is always what's key. So you could put up a website and just say, hey, I'm not going to spam you. Just send me your email address. I'll give you some updates. If you actually had a product and, that was ready to go, but you needed money in order to get the product from point A to point B, and point B was in your hands before you actually ship it off to your customers, then you could take a small, like even $1. So, $1 for pre-sales is traction, even if the thing is, cost $100, $1,000. $1 is $1. That's going from 0 to 1. That's the big thing. So that's something that you can do. There's all different kinds of hacks that you can do. This is what I always say, and it's really simple to, once you start doom scrolling, I always say, set a timer, 20 minutes, half hour, whatever it is that you are going to do, but you need to do the things that you want others to do for you, which is follow or, subscribe, like, comment, and share. So those 4 things are key. As you're going through, you can take a look at the people that actually subscribe to their channel or, whatever their social media account, and follow them. So that would mean that your content is going to have greater possibilities of showing up in their content because it's adjacent to what you're actually doing. And they might end up following back, liking some of the stuff that you produce. Traction through social media is the best way to do it. So, just do all the things that you want others to do. That's the key.
You mentioned social media. And I feel like me personally, I've been very hesitant to really, engage in a lot of content. I do get stuck in the doom scrolling, habits. But at the same time, I think social media is just so powerful now, and there's a lot to be gained because that's where everyone's eyes are. People like a lot of the Facebook and Instagram ads are, I don't even know how big of an industry, but $1 trillion is worth of ad revenue essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think being able to connect to people on social media is a really big game changer for business in today's age versus 20 years ago when all that stuff didn't exist. Let's talk a little bit about customer acquisition. If you had to start from 0, how would you get your first 10 customers?
I would start with my own network first. So depending on what it actually is, not, if I was I'll go back to the Adventure Army sleeve, right? So not everybody has a dog. Not everybody has a dog that goes adventuring. So, out of trying to think of how many people I know that have dogs, out of the 10 people that I know that have dogs, like in my immediate circle, I would probably say 2 would be reachable. The balance of that, social media, reaching out through networks, friends of friends, word of mouth is greater than any type of marketing you could actually do. It's free, and free is good.
I know some companies that pay, millions in marketing, and there's other companies that pay 0 because the products or services pay for themselves.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's like, when's the last time you actually saw a commercial for Kleenex? Maybe during the flu season.
People just know to buy it.
Yeah. And Kleenex, that's another thing. When you reach the pinnacle, I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but like people used to say, oh, I'm going to TiVo that. When you're using the actual brand name, or I'm going to Google this, when you're actually using the brand name as a verb rather than a noun, that's when you've reached
right.
it.
Like I'm going to get a Kleenex, or I'm going to Google it,
Yeah.
The act of
It's
Googling
facial,
it.
yeah, it's facial tissue.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty funny that people, will just automatically say the first thing that, that they're accustomed to, just popping in their head.
Okay. So let's say your business is profitable. When do you decide to grow it? When's the right time?
The right time is when you have, again, systems and processes, because that's what business is actually based on. When you have something that is so automatic and ingrained into the entire fabric of your business, then that's the best time to actually grow your business. Flying the plane while you're building the plane while you're flying it, that I've been through that before. You can make excuses all day long. You will never have a perfect system in place because as soon as that first customer comes into play, you're gonna like, oh crap, I didn't think about that. So I need to change this. I need to change this. You need to be flexible. You need to think about different ways that you can do things. But once you think you have the process down and you gain that first customer, and, it's like, oh, okay, well, I was thinking about doing this, and it seems to me like this is actually going to work out better than the first thing that I had. So, you can have a couple of different scenarios in play of your system and process, but, as long as you have some general idea of different ways to pivot, then that is the best time to actually start growing your business.
I've noticed some of the biggest companies, they've done the same thing. Had one idea to start, and then they're like, oh, actually, my customer base wants this, or my investors or people that actually know better know this. Like, for example, Poppy, the soda brand,
Mhm.
started off as an apple cider vinegar
Mhm.
brand. The founder was very focused on, oh, I want to create healthy, beverages for the general public. And
Yeah.
then it eventually pivoted to, oh, we can actually make a healthy soda, which would be way more marketable. And that's an entirely different, avenue of attack versus, apple cider vinegar,
Yeah, exactly. WD-40, everybody has it at their house, right? It was originally used in the aerospace industry to make sure that certain metals wouldn't corrode or rust. So that's what it was originally used for. And, that is a very narrow, limited, relatively limited supply chain. And when they noticed that it was a really great lubricant, they opened it up to the consumer market. And like I said, you know, show me a can of WD-40 in some way, shape, or form, in some size in your house.
It's
Betting
probably
that
there.
90% of people are going to be able to pull a can out and say, oh, wow, didn't realize that. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I was looking through a bunch of different companies that, the product started off as one thing and pivoted into something completely different.
What's one of the biggest myths about marketing?
Biggest myth I'm going to say is I'm going to go viral. We're going to have a viral moment. I'm going to make a video and it's going to go viral. It's so few and far in between. If you think about how many millions of uploads to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, pick something, none of them really go viral. So it's like, you can't put your bank on that. You can't bank on that at all. That's just something you just cannot do.
But it's still a good idea to post all of your products on
Oh,
social
yeah,
media.
exactly. Consistency is always key. I'm going to use the two letters that a lot of people are just going to like lose their mind over, but AI is going to give you a lot of insight as to when you should post after you do it consistently, try to figure out, after like 100 posts or something like that, just run something through AI and say, when is the best time to actually post? And I was really shocked that one of my clients is like a Tuesday morning, for short form. His long form was Friday afternoons.
Interesting.
Yeah. And like we had no idea. And, his channel has really grown a lot since we started doing that. And we've been doing that for 3 or 4 months now. And the next 2 months I just did for the shorts rather than doing the daily thing, just doing it on once a week just to see how traction was going to go over the next 2 months. So it'll be interesting to see how that actually turns out.
I've heard some people say post shorts every day, to post, something every day just to exactly gain that traction.
Yeah. And shorts is like where you really need to live. Definitely link it to long form content if you can, if that's something that you're able to do. But shorts is where it's at because everybody's like trying to catch up to TikTok.
And now shorts exist on pretty much every social media platform now
Exactly.
too. So I think the other ones have really caught on to this is what this is what holding people's attention. So this is where we need to be
Right.
in the space.
Exactly. Yeah, because you have three. We've all turned into essentially goldfish. We have a 3 to 5 second, attention span. Think about when you scroll. Like, legitimately, set a stopwatch and you take a look at something for like 1 second and then flick. You're up to the next one. Flick. You're up to the next one. Flick. You're like, this is kind of cool. I think I'll watch this. And it's a 30-second long video and you're 5 or 10 minutes or 5 to 10 seconds into it and flick, you're on to the next one if it doesn't hold your attention. So, I did a lot of shorts when I was doing things for I'm pointing to my dog who's laying down behind me. I brought him with me to this to this recording. But I did a lot of like 5-second or 8-second shorts that people didn't realize that, they were and doing the loop. So the end automatically sounds like it goes directly to the beginning, and they can watch it like, 2.5 times before they realize they've actually watched the whole thing. So, that's the trick is like how many times can you get people to actually view your short?
And that helps boost the algorithm, and then which in turn leads to more views and
Exactly.
traction. And
Exactly.
yeah, social media is such a powerful tool.
Exactly. If you know how to manipulate it right.
Okay, let's talk about numbers. How important it is to know the numbers of your business.
Super important. If you are as a SCORE volunteer mentor, my first request is, I get to see what their questions are before, like what the main question is. I can't tell you how many people the first thing out of there, I want to get a grant or I want to get a loan. Well, if you want a grant or a loan, the bank is always going to look at your numbers. So it's really important. They're going to look at MRR, which is monthly reoccurring revenue, and then ARR, which is annual reoccurring revenue. If you're just starting out and you're at 0, they need to at least see 1. No.
And how do you show them that one?
Like I said before, it's, if you're putting up a website and you are asking people to put down a deposit, $1, change it. Like one person giving you $1 changes the entire scenario. That's traction.
We call that pre-revenue, essentially.
Exactly. That's pre-revenue.
And they would base it off of, what they are projecting based off of that.
Yep, exactly. How long did it take you to get there? That's something that, that you need to keep track of as well. How many visitors have come to your website? That's going to be, and where did they come from? How did they get there? That's why you always have, your Google Analytics running in the background so you can track, where they're coming from using QR codes or, some way, shape, or form to track the click from your social media to your actual website. So you can actually track where that's coming from. That always helps. I use a service called Odoo, which is open source. I do have a website. They have different applications. So website is an application. If you're doing a CRM, that's a different application. You can run your entire business, marketing, manufacturing, your supply chain, the whole 9 yards goes into this, into this product. And you can actually see where people are actually coming from with this tool. It's really interesting to see where, because they don't give you the actual, like down to the zip code, or even the state. You can get things to plug in to actually find out where that is, but it'll definitely give you the country that it's coming from. So when I was doing the Adventure Army thing with Alex for the sleeves, I was getting crawled daily, like multiple times a day from China.
Wow.
Yep. And I had a couple of rushes in there, and I was like, where are these people? I understood Germany because I did a lot of research. You have to do a lot of research to figure out, whether or not your product is going to be viable to begin with, who you're going to market it to. The U.S. has one of the biggest North American populations for dog owners, just pet owners in general.
Naturally, we love our dogs.
Exactly. It's like almost 60% to 40% dogs to cats. Another big one is Germany. I didn't think that Germany was going to be that, but apparently they're big into owning things there. I would think that it would be more hurting that you'd have dogs there. I would think like England, Scotland, Ireland, that kind of thing. They have a lot of sheep and lambs and stuff like there. Or going into the Alex, come here, buddy.
He's curious.
Lay down. You're moving
And bored,
stuff around.
probably.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So I would have think that like Australia, they have a lot of cattle and whatnot. So I would have thought that would have been a larger audience with actual dogs, but it was like the US, Canada, Germany. So it was really interesting to see where those metrics are.
Let's say you have a fully profitable business, right? To keep the sustainability, you need systems in place. So let's touch more on the systems. What systematic inefficiencies do people overlook most?
How to track your customers. That's the big one. Their contact information. It's great to get a sale. Here's the thing. If you are selling a product online, that's one thing because regardless of whatever platform you end up using, whether it's Shopify or something else, they have those built-in tools to, like figure out you're going to have to put in a credit card. You're going to have to put in, a zip code. You're going to have to put in an email address, more than likely, right? I have a couple of clients that have there's two that have beverages and there's two that are making food items. And they want to get into Publix, which is local to Florida, Southeast, I should say, or Kroger, or,
Which is your grocery stores?
Exactly. Or, like Walmart, pick something, so grocery store. I don't know if those companies give that data back to, the actual founder of that company. These are the stores that are doing the most business. I can't figure out that unless they have like a loyalty program in some way, shape, or form, they can track like who that actual customer is, like an age group, or whether it's male or female, that kind of thing. I don't know if they're able to give even zip code information, which would be really interesting to see what that actually is. But those are the metrics that you really need to track is, like where are these people coming from? So those are the things that you really need to keep an eye on. So those are the big metrics, the numbers that you need to look at.
Great. When do you know to cut costs versus invest more money into your business?
When you're not hemorrhaging cash. The first thing that popped in my head was, as soon as you asked that question, was WeWork. That's the story of Newman. He had two different businesses. One of them was real estate, and everybody was saying that he kept framing it as a tech startup because it was essentially a building or a floor or something like that. He actually bought these old buildings and turned them into, community works or communal workspaces. So, like 15, 20 different companies can work out of the same space. So essentially and they named it WeWork. He kept saying that it was a tech startup, and this capital firm out of Asia just gave him hand over fist. I think it was like $1 billion, maybe even more than that, multiple billions of dollars. And he had pocketed that money. He had used the money to buy real estate, putting it in his company's name. And then all the stuff that was inside the building was all the WeWork stuff. So he fleeced this poor guy for, I don't even know how much, and ended up, like leaving the company in some way, shape, or form. I don't remember the entire story, but it was absolutely crazy. He was hemorrhaging cash, like big time. There's other companies. I did a bunch of research last night, as a matter of fact, in regards to, just startups. Oh, it was Stripe. I take that back. It was Stripe. Founded in 2010, frequently cited as the perpetual startup, has raised over $9 billion, and the revenue year over year exceeds $1 billion. And they're still in startup mode.
Really? Well,
yeah.
How do you classify as being in startup mode?
I have no idea. At what point do you just cut the cord and say, you know what, I'm sustainable, I can do this on my own? It does not make any sense to me. I would not want to take on, as a founder, I would not want to take on more than one round of funding, period. Give me a one and done. If I can't do it out of that first one, then I am doing something wrong. Clearly, I'm doing something wrong. Stripe, I can't tell you how many people use Stripe on a daily basis, and you don't even know it because it's like baked into the back end of, whatever website you happen to be using. It's one
all
of the
kinds of
biggest
e-commerce use it. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, I just don't understand. OpenAI is another one. Has raised a staggering $110 billion. Their revenue is $20 billion a year. When do you pull the plug?
AI is a tricky one when it comes to investing because there's billions that are invested into these companies, and they're even giving founders, these contracts that make baseball players and football players look like poor people, they're getting, these companies are betting on people that are like, oh, this person's going to save us or it's going to make us great, right? So the amount of money that's going into AI and versus the amount of returns they're expecting is almost just unreasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also part of another group called the Founders Group, which is where founders and investors commingle in the same space. I can't tell you how many founders come in, they have like AI. I'm doing this with AI. I'm doing this with AI. And I can't tell you how many investors see the word AI and they're like, pass.
Really?
Yeah. Unless it's something that's like so novel and is just like, for lack of a better term, idiot proof, then they'll just steer away from it.
I would have thought it'd be the opposite because in my mind, maybe I'm not thinking as much like an investor, but in my mind, I would see AI and I would see trillions of dollars, up for grabs. So you'd think if you had a good idea that involved it, you'd be like, oh, this is making a process easier and it's through AI.
Right.
So
exactly.
That's not the case?
Not at all. Not what we're seeing at all. It's been really interesting. There has been a couple of startups that came through our group. Both of them were in the medical field using AI. One of them was essentially just a mic that was attached to EMTs. So as they're going through the entire scenario of whatever they're doing, whatever rescue they happen to be on, they have to go back and recreate that entire scene. What happened? What did I do? What did I use? What did I call for? What were the stats of this person? And, this mic is recording everything that they say, transcribing it, putting it into the reports that they need to do at the end of their shift or at the end of their call. And it's taking what takes like an hour's worth of work is like 10 minutes now because all of it's right there.
Incredible.
Yeah. It shortens up their thing. Same thing with, that you can duplicate that into, like hospitals, doctors' offices, that kind of thing. So, everything that they're saying and everything that they are doing is being, picked up and, being transcribed, putting into the report that it needs to be in, and, including with timestamps, because that's what's important too, that was absolutely incredible. Another guy that came through, he actually used AI to sports betting. And one of my friends, I'm laughing because it just seems so absurd, but it actually worked. One of my friends really likes, doing betting, does some bets and whatnot, and, bet on a few games. And his accuracy rate was like somewhere around 60%, which is better than, it's better than 50-50.
Professional gamblers, from what I understand, are winning 55% of the time, so
Yeah,
60% is incredible.
exactly. I was actually blown away.
I used to use excuse me.
Yeah.
I used to use a program called Sportsline, and I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I just it was fun.
Right.
Fun thing to do with gambling. I don't gamble a lot. I think it's not financially responsible to be gambling a lot, but it's fun. But anyway, I used this website that you essentially ran every single money line, spread, over under, and it kind of just ran it through computer. It's like hundreds of thousands of times. And it kind of gave you how many times that outcome happened versus how much money are you going to gain or lose.
Right.
So now I guess what you're saying is there's AI companies that are doing that for people. They're just essentially like simulating sports gambling and making picks for them.
Exactly. Wow. People invent all kinds of things, good, bad, or otherwise.
And it makes more work for Vegas too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they have to find a way to continue winning.
Exactly. That's definitely not my cup of tea. Definitely not.
Well, I guess my follow-up would be, going off script.
Yeah.
My follow-up would be, as far as AI goes, how important is it to learn how to use AI for your business? Is it everything, or is it?
It will definitely save you time. And like I said before, people are upset because, AI is changing the landscape of, small towns. They're going to these small towns and saying, we can create all these jobs. Puts, obviously it does put, a lot of strain on their electricity grid. Somebody has to pay for it. It ends up being not AI. The company that's doing the AI thing. Interestingly enough, I did do some research on this. I'm big into research. I love learning. What do you think the number one consumption of electricity is in the nation?
It has to be AI.
Nope. Not even by a long shot. 30%, more than 30% is manufacturing. AI, not even 1% yet. It might hit 3% by the time in like 2 years.
Now, what do you mean by manufacturing? What kind of manufacturing are we talking?
Any type of manufacturing. Think of, how much electricity it costs to push a car down an assembly line. Back when I was 19 or 20, something like that, I worked in a foundry. So, you're heating metal up in order to go into a press to crunch it down. I was making transmission parts. So, to pound this thing down into a gear in some way, shape, or form. So, there's all kinds of, it takes all kinds of energy to actually produce that. You're running these saws that have to cut metal, and there's hydraulic pumps that are, working in all of this. So, the manufacturing is like the biggest thing. And you don't hear people complaining about manufacturing. We want more manufacturing back in the United States. This is all you hear now, right? And, it's going to put a strain on the energy grid. Where's this energy going to come from? So, even to produce coal, And
what's the solution?
I don't know. Let's just blow up the entire world and start all over again. Knowing what we know now, we'll figure it out. I always go the nuclear option.
I don't know if
nuclear,
that's feasible.
Nuclear energy, there's pros and cons, obviously, but, there's more call to actually start up or nuclear facilities. And, it takes energy to do all that too. Once it's ramped up, it's relatively cost efficient. We're killing green energy, projects, solar panels, wind farms. It boggles my mind that you want to put servers in a place that is 110 to 120 degrees during the summer, rather than going to, I don't know, let's say northern states where it's, like 20 below sometimes, during the winter, and it's doesn't really get up to, much higher than 80 degrees. You have to cool these things down. What's the easiest way to do that? Put it in a cooler climate,
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Too much sense.
Sometimes the most logical solution is not the solution that they take.
Exactly.
So, what are some of the things that separate a side hustle from a real business? I should ask, when do you decide that your side hustle can become a real business?
When you are making enough money from your side hustle that you're able to pay, I don't know, some big ticket item, a mortgage, your rent, your car, your insurance in some way, shape, or form. If it's paying for a big bill, then, it's probably time to, reassess what you're doing, how you're doing it. This is the scaling portion of where things are in. Do you have a system and process in play that is repeatable and is easy enough that it's not going to cause you a lot of strain if you cut back on your day job in some way, shape, or form? So, a lot of people might be working, their 9 to 5, and they find that as soon as they get home, they have umpteen orders in. Well, what would it look like if you doubled down on that and you maybe you took a part-time job someplace else where you have flex hours rather than, the 9 to 5 that you're currently working? It's one of those things where, it's easily repeatable, and it is something that, I can quit my stupid day job when it actually takes off. That's something you really have to look at is, are the numbers there that, you can cut back and grow your business the way you need to and take the time in order to do it? Because, doing it after work and doing it on the weekends,
Sounds exhausting.
yeah, exactly. And that's another thing that you really have to take a look at too. If you're going to be a, an entrepreneur, you're going to be a founder, your friends and your family are going to take a hit in some way, shape, or form. If they are not involved in any way, shape, or form, then they're going to wonder where the heck you are. My neighbors, they're like, I hardly ever see you. It's like one of those things where I've been working. I'm sorry.
It's one of those things. I think the general public, most of your friends and family that you're going to have are not going to understand, like you have this vision to create something bigger than just your regular 9 to 5,
Unless you have a significant other that understands what you're trying to do, is relatively not risk adverse, you are probably going to wind up doing really well. If you have somebody that, has been through it multiple times, there's a real strong possibility that you're going to end up, losing your relationship in some way, shape, or form, which is sad, but it's one of those things where I hate to say pick and choose, but what is more important is if you're a founder, if you're an entrepreneur, there's something that's inside of you, just baked inside of you. You can't grow an entrepreneur. It's something that you're just born with, this drive to, produce something that hasn't been produced before or has. If you take a look at it, I mean, Lululemon didn't, create nylon, tight nylons or anything like that. Dyson didn't invent a vacuum cleaner. They just improved on a design that was already there. And, everybody knows what a Dyson vacuum cleaner is. They've done great marketing, and there's really nothing new except for the concept isn't new, I should say. The actual technology behind it is new. So,
let's say I'm interested in buying a business that's existing versus starting something new. Kind of pivoting here to a whole different idea. Because I know I'm looking at the statistics is that there's a lot of businesses right now that I guess the demographic is older, and there's a lot of people that are retiring, and there's not really as many people taking over existing businesses, and they're just shutting the doors, right? And we're talking like millions of dollars of lost potential. So what do you think about buying businesses opposed to starting them?
You already have baked in MRR and ARR. I mean, it would be ridiculous not to go down that path. There is gal, her name is Cody Sanchez, Codie
I'm a very
Sanchez.
big fan of her.
All
Yes.
right, so you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully, some other people know what we're talking about as
I read her
well.
books and all that.
Yeah, I mean, she is 100% baller status, and she will like flat out say, "Okay, this is a great idea. This is a great investment opportunity." Things you wouldn't even think of, window cleaning. Like I remember one video, she's like, "You know what? I'm going to do window cleaning. I'm just going to go out and knock on my neighbors' doors." That's, if you're starting a business, like service business in some way, shape, or form, go to your neighbors, knock on their door. "Hey, I'm starting this business. It's a power washing business. I noticed that you have a bunch of everybody on everybody's house. If your side of your house faces north, you're going to have in some way, shape, or form moss or something like that, some green algae growth on there because the sun doesn't hit on that side, right? So let me power wash that for you. I noticed that your sidewalk looks absolutely horrible. How many times have you looked at a YouTube video or a TikTok video or something like that where, it's ASMR. I swear to God, it's like OCD for me. It calms my OCD, I should say. Watching these videos where they're either mowing a lawn, they're they're power washing a sidewalk or a driveway or something like that. It's amazing to see, just all this crap that's actually caked on and seeing it come back to this original pristine type of a look. It's absolutely amazing. And people are going to say, "Oh, I can't even believe that." You could rent for a weekend a power washer for, I don't know, let's say it's $150 for the weekend or even $300 for a weekend. You're charging somebody $100 to do their driveway or their sidewalk or something like that. How many can you kick out in a day? 3, 5? If it's 3 a day and you're doing it from the moment the sun comes up until, the moment the sun goes down, that's a pretty good chunk of time. 3 in a day, you just paid for your rental for the power washer.
Alternatively, I guess, could you look at it in a sense of how many of these can I do in a day by paying somebody to do it for me? Essentially, with your business, whether it's power washing, whether it's mowing lawns, landscaping, you name any kind of service industry, right? What do you think about that kind of business model?
If you're starting out, then you already have money. You know what I mean? If you're paying somebody else to do the work that you need to do in order to like start it out, you need to be boots on the ground, actually hands on when you're starting a business to figure out what works and what doesn't. Because
I agree 100%.
yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, you send somebody out with like a 50-foot hose. Well, their driveway is 150 feet. Do the math. You know what I mean? So you're not going to know what this person is going to need. Well, I could only do like a quarter of the work that I needed to do because, I didn't have the tools to do the job. You need to actually be out there doing the work in order to launch your business.
100%.
Yeah. So hiring somebody is great, but that's part of the scaling portion of things. You need to make sure that you have systems and processes in place. Let me say that again, systems and processes in place. So that is 100% the key. Figure out the system, figure out the processes, take a look at every single metric that you can possibly think of. There's going to be things that you miss, but you'll pick those up along the way. And, the things that you miss, if you hire somebody, they're not going to know it.
They're going to go off of your systems and processes.
Exactly. And they're probably not going to, they're either going to forget because it was the very first job that they did, or they're not going to tell you in general because they're going to think that you're complaining.
I want to talk about mentorship.
Yeah.
You're at a point now where you're mentoring new aspiring business owners. So why do you think having a mentor is important?
Because when you are in the trenches, everything is right here. You can't see back here, the back of your hand. You can't see the forest for the trees. It's going to give you a different perspective. When you're looking for a mentor, you're usually looking for somebody who knows something that you don't know, or you think you know, but you're not solid on it. There's a lot of tech people out there that just hate the marketing aspect of things. They hate the business side of things, or they don't know the business side of things because they're so busy looking at, I'll take my co-founder as an example. Like Nevada, he legitimately is looking at little teeny tiny, like microscopic pathogens inside a gelatinous form and removing them, right?
And he quite literally can't see the big picture.
Exactly. You got it. You hit the nail right on the head, legit. So, he's so busy. He's so trained, I should say, not busy. He's so trained at looking at the microscopic things that like the big things, I don't want to say are overwhelming to him, but he can't process it the way other people can. And for some reason, I have just been blessed with that or cursed. I don't know really which one it is. But yeah, it's like one of those things where, I've always been able to see a path forward in some way, shape, or form.
And I think having a team in place is important too, because
Yes.
if you have someone who's, great at the tech or at whatever product they're selling or just making or doing the service, having somebody on your side who really understands how to get from your idea to the customer and making money in between is key,
Mhm.
super, super important.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It always helps everybody has blind spots. You got to figure out what they are. For me, I don't want to say math in general, but I can take a look at numbers, but when it comes to figuring out, like diving down deeper into them, I can do the big things really well, but driving down into something, I need somebody else to be there with me. I'm great at marketing. But when I was doing the Adventure Army thing, I wanted to make sure that, my tunnel vision was not so myopic that I couldn't see the big picture. So I reached out to somebody on Score who, has gone through that path in some way, shape, or form. Like, can you take a look at my marketing? Do I need to do anything? She's like, no, it looks like you're actually dialed in. I'm like, aces. Cool. I can actually move forward on this. I have another friend who is great with numbers. So, I'll reach out to Katie and I'm like, will you take a look and see if this actually makes sense? And she's like, oh, you forgot to carry the one or whatever it happens to be. So, it's always great to have somebody there in your corner. So a mentor is going to be in your corner. They're not going to be afraid to tell you the hard things. So, you're completely doing this wrong. If you end up doing this, then this is the result that you're going to end up getting.
It's extremely important to have somebody that's going to give you tough love,
Yeah.
because saying the nice thing may not always be the best thing for your business, right?
Yeah.
All right, but realistically, can somebody grow alone if they want? Is that really feasible?
Yes, depending on what it actually is. So, like I have a gal that she does artwork. So she creates these planners. She does artwork for them. She puts them on the pages and whatnot, and she sells them. At some point, she is going to need somebody else to come in and help her package these things up and ship them out. She's going to need somebody to do something in some way, shape, or form. But right now, it's a sustainable business for her. I have somebody else that she and her husband go out and they have a food truck. And so she and her husband go out and they do this on weekends, but they want to expand. Well, they could do two, right? He could run one, she could run one. But if they get super busy, they're going to need somebody else to, be behind the scenes prepping whatever needs to be prepped, et cetera, et cetera. You're always going to have to hire somebody at some point in time if you want to grow the way that you need to grow. No man is an island. That's one of my favorite sayings. So, you can do it for a while, but at some point you're going to have to bring somebody in.
In entrepreneurship, what personality traits matter the most? Me personally, I would say obsessiveness.
Yeah, persistence, resiliency.
Resilience.
Those are two key ones. Just a drive, essentially. I mean, it has to be baked into you, like I'd said before. It's just one of those things where, I can tell you what to do, I can show you how to do it. But if that passion is not baked inside of you, then, it's not going to end up working out for anybody. Your customers are going to end up feeling it if you're not passionate about what you do. Your sales are going to show it if you're not passionate. So it's just an internal drive that you can't turn off.
If somebody wants to make business work, what habits should they change immediately?
If you're starting a business, you have to be dedicated. You cannot go into it thinking that the life that you are living currently is going to be the same one when you do the startup. Even if if the startup is the only thing that you're doing, it's like, great point. Here's a great point. So a friend of mine started his law business, right? He and another friend. And I'm like, how's it going? He's like, it's like raising a baby.
Literally is a
Yeah,
baby in a
and
way.
yeah, exactly. And you constantly have to feed it. You constantly have to change its diaper. It's like one of those things where, you have to care for it. As it gets older, you get into the terrible twos, you get into the ferocious fours, you get into the teenage years. At some point it's going to mature where you can actually return to a semi-normal life. Your business is always going to be front of mind. Here's what I'm afraid of. I'm not really afraid of, but I'm concerned about. Okay, Warren Buffett, he's going to retire this year, right? I am really afraid out of the 60, 70 years, however long he's been doing in business, doing things for himself. I'm really concerned that when he retires, that his identity is going to be gone and he's probably going to pass relatively quickly. I hate to even think that and even to say it, but I've seen it happen where people have just been, that is all that they have known. That's all that they do. They're so passionate about it that when they retire, case in point, one of the guys that there was a gentleman that was a instructor of mine at Michigan State University when I was getting my master's in IT management, and he retired, and legitimately within 6 months,
He was gone.
he was gone. I was so shocked, and it was such a major loss to the industry because he would take people to task. He would take big corporations to task, and he's like, I cannot believe he would go on and on and on about two people or like two companies in general. I'm like, I can't even believe they do this. I can't believe they get away with this. And, when he retired, I was just like, oh, thank God, he has time to relax. Yeah. And he was so wound up that, his relax was to pass.
It was too relaxed.
Yeah. So, that is my greatest fear is that, when it's time to retire, you do need to figure out, how to make a separation. Your business is your life, but it can't be so consuming. You know what I mean? So you need to make time for yourself and for your family and friends. But during that startup phase, it's going to be really, really rough. You cannot live the same life that you live currently if you're going to do a startup. Period.
That might be a big reality check for some people, myself included.
It's I can't tell you. I probably have had in the coming up on 2 years now that I've been a SCORE volunteer mentor. I've probably had 300 or 400 different individuals reach out to me, and I want to do this. I'm not really sure what I want to do. I'm like, well, what do you like to do? What are you passionate about? They figure that part out, and I'm like, well, here's these are things that you need to do, and then I never hear from them again because it's a lot of work.
And some people aren't willing to take all that on, right?
Exactly.
Then the misconception with entrepreneurship in a lot of ways are people are like, oh, I can make a bunch of money and I can do nothing. But I feel like that's pretty much the opposite of what it actually is. Because it's a whole life consuming lifestyle in a way. It's like everything you do, like essentially you could go to work, take care of what needs to be done, close the doors for the day, and then a problem could come up. And guess who's on the hook for it?
Exactly.
You are.
Exactly.
So, all right, Adam.
Chris?
All right. We are getting cut off here. The studio's closing, but any closing thoughts for you?
Always happy to help out. If you're looking for mentorship, go to score.org. You can find mentorship there. If you already have a business and you're looking to grow, the Founders Group, it's actually legitimately thefounders.group is the website.
Which I'll make sure to link in the description.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, those are the two easiest ways to, find mentorship, and just get on the road to success and profitability.
I hope to keep you updated in my entrepreneurial endeavors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think it's great what you're doing.
Absolutely. My goal is to take information and make people, healthier, wealthier, and wiser.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being a part of that.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you.